Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teskey, and today I am joined by Jamie Tao and Sam from Tao Labs in Brattleboro. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, man. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Now, at the start of every episode, I'd like to ask all my guests to do a 5-minute life story. And Sam, I was hoping maybe you would start, sir, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's a tough assignment, man. Five minutes for 37 years of excellence.
Take your time, man. You take as long as you need.
No, for sure, for sure. No, so Sam Neill, born in Cairo, Egypt, of all places,
Wow.
to a Nigerian mother and an American father who happened to be a Vermont native. So when we were done with our travels throughout Africa, sort of chasing my father and some of the work that he was doing for international governments, we ended up moving back to his family home in Saxons River, of all places. So I moved there when I was in kindergarten and was there for pretty much my entire adolescence up until the age of 18 when I shipped off to college down in Boston. But Vermont, I mean, that's home for me. So long time roots to the area. I think we can trace our family's history in Vermont to over 250 years ago, continuous in the same house even. So we've had that same house in our family for forever.
Awesome.
I
What'd you
think
go to
like a
college
lot
for,
of
Sam?
sociology, which is not what I used the degree for today. I'm in tech sales or tech sales leadership, I should say. But it's cool, man, because I think like a lot of Vermonters, it's kind of interesting, right? Or a lot of young Vermonters, right? You get to this point where some of us went off to college, some of us were fortunate enough to go off to college. A lot of our buddies ended up staying back home, and you all sort of get to this crossroads of whether or not you're going to make your life in Vermont or if you're going to have to go outside of Vermont to make your life. I had to make the tough decision of going outside of Vermont to make my life. So ended up down in Austin, Texas with my little family and my wife and sort of making a living there. But obviously the ties to the area run deep, and we're back there for Christmas. We're back there in the summer. The house is still standing up there in Saxons River, so we try to spend as much time up there as we can.
And I've heard
And
Austin. I've heard Austin is a great city.
it is. It's getting packed, though. It's getting
Yeah.
packed. We moved here probably 7 years ago, and as with everything, the secret's out, right? So people start flooding in from the coast.
Yeah.
The traffic's gotten crazy, but it's been a blessing to us for sure. So I can't complain at all. We love Austin.
Similar things happening here in Vermont, sir.
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
okay, cool. Jamie,
Sorry about that. My cat was on my table.
I don't care, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so I was born in Maine. My parents immigrated here from Taiwan. They born in Maine, then they after a few months they moved to Burlington. I was there up until I was 10. Moved around a little bit, lived in South Dakota, lived in California, then moved to Brattleboro when I was 15. Been here since. Um, you know, so not a lot to it. Um, it's kind of funny. My dad's from an island called Dachen Island, and he when they left there wasn't he hadn't experienced electricity yet. So
Wow.
in his lifetime, from here to now, he's had like lived in with zero electricity all the way to having a smartphone that's as powerful as or more powerful than the technology they used to get to the moon. So it's like, he's seen it all. So
Wow. That
funny,
must be
funny
quite a
little,
culture shock for your parents, huh?
yeah. It's a funny little tidbit from their perspective. Yeah, it's definitely culture shock and just like, just they've been here for a while, but it's definitely still shock for them.
Now, how did you guys meet?
So we had mutual friends and we did music together. And then
Yeah,
we ended up living next door to each other, which is
yeah,
funny
that's so true.
coincidence.
No, for sure. I think yeah, that's kind of like the sanitized story for sure, right? I think we did a lot of music together like in our 20s, and
What
we
kind of
were
music?
doing a lot of hip hop stuff back then. So a lot of beat making, a lot of rapping and stuff like that. And we had a little collective down in southern Vermont in the Brattleboro area that we had started up, and we were having fun with that, doing shows and doing that. And then obviously we both have had a turn in the old legacy market as well. So we had partnered up on a couple of things there, which made a ton of sense. And yeah, I think it's kind of a similar story to a lot of Vermonters, right? It's a small group of kids usually that are in your age bracket, and you end up knowing kind of everybody. And there's certain people that you align with more than others, and yeah, that's kind of the story. So yeah, southern Vermont, small community, found each other that way. Yeah.
The whole state's kind of a small community, I
It
feel.
really is, man.
You know.
Yeah.
Mm. Now, I wanted to, Sam, you got a business degree, is that correct?
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's funny, man. Yeah, I got a business degree. I actually almost made it through an advanced computer science program as well at Bentley University down in Boston. So yeah,
Jamie told me you were a good nerd. And
no, for sure, man. I mean, I've been blessed to have a career in tech for a number of years, over a decade for sure, and been super successful in that space, in that arena. And I think a lot of that obviously translates to kind of what we're starting now with Tao Labs and what we've been working on. Man, we sat for a second and thought about it a couple weeks ago. I think we've been working on Tao Labs in some way, shape, or form for over 2.5 years. Like the concept is at least 2.5 years old for sure.
now, can I ask you, gentlemen, what sort of license that you're seeking here in Vermont?
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. So we're doing manufacturing and cultivation to start. We actually got pre-approval.
Which tiers, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so we're tier 2 on the cultivation side of things, and then we're doing everything solventless, which they kind of switched around the nomenclature for the manufacturing. So I think it's tier 2 solventless, which means it's not like the smaller cap one, but the slightly larger cap one. So we can do a little bit more processing of material than the smaller one, but everything solventless, which is kind of I think our real passion, right? Obviously we love growing flower. But Jamie is a particularly special hash producer. I guess I'd put it that way.
And I gotta say, some of the flower that I've seen you guys growing, it just looks phenomenal.
That's all.
Thank you.
Jamie's got to take all that credit.
Okay, cool.
Appreciate that.
Cool. So, I'd like to ask you sort of about going through the licensure process and sort of any of the hangups you might have had, if you had any at all. I mean, some people it seems like they breezed right through. Some people it seems like they had kind of a tricky time, and I'm curious how that process played out for you guys.
So to be clear, it's ongoing for us. So we have pre-approval in all three of those, and then we're actively in process for the cultivation and the manufacturing piece. I will say this: it's tough to benchmark because this is the first time that we've done it, right? Like, I don't know what the process was like in Maine. I don't know what the process was like in Oklahoma. I think Vermont has done the best that they can, or I should say Peppers and some of these great folks at the CCB, which by the way, do have to give huge hats off. One thing I think has been, it's not easy. It's not an easy process, but one thing that has made it bearable is the fact that these people are so responsive. Like,
so you guys haven't had any trouble getting them on the phone or getting them to respond to email? Cool.
Our experience, I mean, literally the other day, we had a response to an email in like 3 minutes or something. It was nuts. It was nuts how fast it was. And then I've even left messages. And then, yeah, maybe it takes a day or two for someone to give me a call back, but they always have called back. They've always had the answers to my questions to the best of their ability. They've done, I think, as good of a job as can be expected to try to think of all the little ins and outs. And that's really what it comes down to, is even as you're starting a business, right? There's just all these little nuanced things like, where's the hose connection going to be that we're going to try to drag into flower, like all this, like just minutia. And that's the sort of level of thought and process that they've had to apply to these license structures. And I think they've done a pretty damn good job, man. Like I can't fault it. I know that some people have had to wait. Obviously you can look at Jamie and I and tell that we're social equity applicants, right? But I don't know if that's helped us, get quick responses or what, but I've had nothing but a positive experience, to be honest with you.
Well, that's good to hear, man. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
Jamie, do you agree?
Yeah. I haven't had as much contact as Sam, but from what I've been told and what I've been seeing, that's about pretty accurate.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
now,
Pretty responsive.
and now, Jamie, I really wanted to talk to you about some of this caretaker stuff because I fished around and I tried to find something secret I could ask you about, and it seems like maybe you were caretaking for some of your family members, which is something that I really love, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'll explain that a little bit. So my mom, about 3 or 4 years before she passed, got pretty sick. Her health started declining. So I kind of just dropped like 80% of everything and just started taking care of her to the best of my ability. At the time I thought it would be short term, but as things happened, it just kept, you know, things just kept piling on top of each other. And so I was taking care of her. A lot of it could have people would think you would be able to hire a nurse or something like that to help, but since she didn't speak English, I would be the one to translate for the nurses while they were there. Pretty
So
much,
you
and
would have
then
had to be there anyway.
yeah, which was what ended up happening. There was a visiting nurse near the end that came about twice a week, and there was times I didn't need to be there, but most of the time, it would be they even if I didn't need to be there, it would she would feel better I was there just to translate for her, just
Mhm.
in case there was something that they missed. My brothers helped a lot too, definitely. They were there for a good amount of time, and sometimes but they lived up north, so I'd be the one at home base, and as well as my partner Isabel. She when we first started dating, she had, or she still does, but it's more manageable. But she had EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome,
Mm.
um, and that causes joint
Well, that's
problems.
like a disorder of the connective tissue or something like that.
Yeah. So she's extra flexible, but it makes it so she has a lot of pain and aches.
Yeah.
And when I first met her, or when we first started dating, it was pretty bad. But throughout the years, she's been able to manage it through physical therapy, um, the rheumatologist that she's seen, and just all the circuits of doctors that's been helping her out. But so I was helping her bringing her to her appointments, taking her wherever she needed to go, all the physical heavy lifting. But I feel like that's what a lot of boyfriends do anyway, so it wasn't too bad.
You got to take your girlfriend to the appointment.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
You got
totally.
it's your job.
now. Has the cannabis helped her treat those symptoms at all?
Oh, totally. That's actually one of the biggest parts. She takes cannabis daily, and that helps her able to function.
Mm.
Without that, I think she'd be a lot more pain, at least pain that's not being distracted.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's like the right term, but because of the cannabis, because of her cannabis intake, she's able to function a lot more smoother throughout the day.
Mm.
And as someone who grows it, I can help her. A lot of the strings I find is to help, pain alleviation or anxiety alleviation, which is something both her and I have problems with as well.
So,
So
so you're hunting
very,
for a very specific type of product that
yeah,
will help your
on
medical conditions.
definitely on one side, that's definitely one aspect of it. I do have the other side where it's like, oh, that one sounds cool. Let's try that out. Oh, that one smells nice,
Oh, yeah.
But there's definitely the medical side of like, all right, that's going to be beneficial for her and I, and
Mm.
beneficial for my dad as well. My dad, he's 73. I got him to try cannabis for the first time this year. It's definitely helped him with his insomnia and some of his anxiety. So
Wow.
that's a big
What,
bonus.
if you don't mind me asking, in which way did he ingest it?
Uh, through a through a joint.
Go.
I want him to try edibles because it's better since there's no tar. But I I'm just easing him into it, just like tiny little hit first, and then go from there.
And how did he react to it?
Um, he I it was new to him. He didn't know how to describe it, but eventually it was just like he felt relaxed and a little lightheaded.
Mm. Mm. That sounds about right.
Yeah, pretty
And,
much. Oh,
and I, I
for
know, Jamie, I
yeah, go
told you
ahead.
this story on the phone that like right before my grandma died, I got to feed her an edible, which is a very like sort of special experience for me and my whole family really when they got to see how she reacted to it, because like I said, she called me 2 hours later. She said, I don't know if it's working, but I just ate a whole meatloaf and all my vegetables. And I was like, yeah, Grandma, it's working.
It's working. It's working.
So that was a very special moment, I thought, for my entire family, and
No,
especially
I
for
would
me personally.
definitely appreciate hearing that as well, because a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, it's obviously it's not a one cure fix all, but people can be surprised. They hear about the stigma about it throughout their whole lives, and as soon as they try, they realize that it's actually beneficial. It's at least a tiny aspect of their life.
Can I
A
tell you,
lot of times.
I was surprised how well it worked. And I've
Yeah.
taken edibles my whole life, really, here for the last 20 years. And even I was amazed at how well she was feeling. It kind of caught me
Yeah.
off guard, and that was even more amazing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that was such a great moment. Can I ask you guys about setting up a business? I wanted to ask you about maybe banking, maybe the insurance, maybe zoning. If you had any issues with the zoning, those three in particular.
Yeah. All right. So banking, zoning, and insurance. So the banking thing has evolved really rapidly. Like, I don't know if you kind of started to pick on pick up on some of this, but there is a lot more providers than there were just even 4 or 5 months ago.
Mm.
And so we've been lucky to find a partner in Vermont Federal Credit Union, and they have been nothing but easy to work with, quite frankly. They have a fee structure that makes sense to us. It doesn't kick in until you're fully licensed. Like, there's things that they can do to set you up in the right way as you're building your business, right? We're doing a whole facility build out. Like, there's a lot of moving parts for us. We needed somebody from a banking perspective that could kind of support our requirements of having a business checking account. We've got myself, Jamie, and like one other guy who kind of does our finances for us that kind of oversee that. We're able to kind of quickly integrate their platform into QuickBooks and like do all that. So like, our banking situation was something that I was really, really concerned about maybe half a year ago. And then as we kind of got closer to the need to actually start opening accounts and funding the business and doing everything else, it just kind of worked itself out, man. And I was also scared about, or not scared, but like, I think concerned about the limited number of options, right? And what that was doing from a fee schedule perspective, right? Like, there was a couple folks, not names needing to be mentioned here, but that were clearly putting a pretty severe premium on cannabis businesses. One that I think, as a small business owner, which is what we are, all of us throughout the state that are doing this, really, you just don't have the margins to be blowing capital on the fees associated with you holding that capital safely. That's like not a good business model, period.
Right.
So
And it made me wonder, like, if you're going to charge people a fee for deposits, maybe they just won't deposit money in your bank.
Right. And so then now we're back to this idea of, a very cash driven business. And then there's cash management plans, and,
Sure.
People are having to pay Brinks trucks to take the thing from here to over there. Like, it gets really, I think, backward in a hurry. Right. And that's what the whole thing is that's trying to be avoided by going into this. At least I think one of the big things that's trying to be avoided as we go into a legalized adult use market is some of this cash dependency and some of the dangers and, violent crime and things that can be a result of that. So for us, as we finally got to that stage in our business sort of maturation, it was nice to find a partner specifically in that bank that was able to kind of help us out and make things easy, to be quite honest. So it's so far so good. Like, I think once we get to an operating state and we're, cash is changing hands between us and points of sale and some of these things, it'll be interesting to see how it continues to develop. But fingers crossed for now, that's been a relatively straightforward process, and it hasn't cost us an arm and a leg to be able to bank, really, at this point.
That's nice to hear, Sam.
Yeah, no. And again, like, I think we've done some calculations around what the fees are when we do get our licensing, and it's something that we can forecast and be sort of assured in what our fees are going to be over time. There were other banks and institutions that took a percentage approach, like a percentage deposit approach.
Vermont VSCCU is doing the 1.5%. I'll say their name. You don't have to, but I'll say it.
It's not fucking cool. It's not fucking cool. It's not fucking cool. Margins being what they are, we know things are going to change. We were just talking about this before we went live, right? We think there's going to be some flattening out of different price points, as there should be, right?
There will. That always happens.
It's happening. It's going to happen. I think hopefully we don't see what happened in Oklahoma happen in Vermont, but you know what I mean? There's going to be a flattening out here, and margins are going to get tighter. You know, market leaders are going to emerge, all this stuff. But one thing that I don't think any of us can afford is to have our banking institutions go into our pockets and take actual points off the top of our revenue. That's not,
especially with all the taxes and all everything. You know, that's just one more.
It's like the one more thing. It's like the better I do, the better my bank does. Like I'm not quite sure that's the model that I can get behind. In fact, I'm fucking certain I can't, right?
So Jamie, let me ask you this, man. How do you set your product apart from everyone else and become one of these market leaders that Sam just mentioned?
Honestly, it's just a lot of strain hunting, even pheno hunting specifically. You know, you can have 50 seeds from the same moms and fathers, but those 50 seeds, 50 plants might come out all differently, or, you know, some leans that way, the other leans this way. And you just pick the best ones and you know, call out the other ones pretty much, and just keep finding good ones and then keeping them in your stable. And then some people even do some genetic crossing, and I've done that a little bit. So we're gonna have pretty unique strains in our stable.
And how long have you been? Sorry to interrupt. How long have you been growing for?
So I've been growing for myself for not as long. So about three years, but I've grown for other people about 10 years.
I was gonna say the pictures I see you post on Instagram are absolutely phenomenal, dude. Like,
I appreciate that.
And when it comes to, you know, I like to think that I'm also looking for the good herb, because I'm not just a journalist, but I'm also a customer. You know what I mean? Man. So I appreciate the good shit, and you really have come to the top here. And honestly, it was Nick Smith, I think, that brought you to my attention from Emerald Vision. So, you know, holler to Nick.
Dude, Nick is the man. I gotta give him a shout out. He has been
shout out,
like, crazy helpful.
He has been an absolute godsend for our business. Like, no cap. Like, I know him and Jamie have spent a lot of time together, but even someone who doesn't interact with him like on a frequent basis, we got to say thank you to that dude. He's just been a real ally for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
I also have to thank him because he was my first lead on this whole story, and he's just been nothing but a wealth of information.
Jamie, on something that you were just talking about though, on like the pheno hunts and everything else, I think the best example of that is funny is like over the summer, I spent a ton of time back in Vermont this summer just with Jamie hanging out, and we were talking about a lot about the menu and kind of the things that we were really excited to try to bring to market. But that perfect example of the pheno hunt is what Jamie did with Strawberry Gear. I'll let you fill him in on, or let him fill you in on the details, but there was a ton of variants of Strawberry Gary that we went through, probably like 5 or 6. And I just remember like probably a straight month of just like trying different variants of it out, and then like finally settling on one out of, I think it was like 5 different phenotypes that you had going.
Yeah, that 5 was picked from another 20 before that too.
So it just got crazy, man. And like, it's crazy to me as someone who, I think maybe like you, Caleb, like I love the plant, right? I love the herb for sure. Like that is something I've been passionate about since a young man in a lot of different ways. But then to be partnered up with somebody like Jamie, who really understands this plant at like a much deeper level, and then has taken it to the point of doing like 20 down to 5, and then from that 5 down to a singular variant that is like hitting enough of the different boxes, right? Like we talked about reduction of anxiety, or maybe it's appetite suppression or support, or like all these different things, and like how far you can get down these rabbit holes before finding something that you feel is right to share with others. Like it's just it's a heady idea, and it's one of the things that I actually do really love about this thing. Right?
So you have confidence in your partner here.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Jamie, I wanted to ask you on the phone, you mentioned, I believe you said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said the police ruined your life.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to ask you because this is something that I've been dealing with recently, and I'd like to ask you sort of about your interactions with law enforcement and the impact that that has had on your life.
Yeah, man, it's been a long road. So, as a teenager, 16, 17, growing up Section 8 housing, there's something to fill our, to help us get by was to sell a couple eighths here and there of terrible, terrible weed back when I was like 17,
Yeah.
It was shaped like a brick, still had seeds in it, it's pretty bad. These days, you probably just use it as like a blunt object for any like a doorstop or anything. But back then, I was I enjoyed weed, recreational sense and a medical sense. So to support myself, I would sell some weed to my friends, and somebody bought from me who was working for the police, and it was $150 worth of mids through three times, or $50 each, so 150 total. And they charged me with three felonies. I was 17 at the time, but they waited until I was 18 to charge me. And then it took another 2.5 years to go through court, or about a year and a half, maybe 2 years to go through court. Then my public defender had to plead down to one felony, deferred sentence with 5-year probation and
And we're
55
talking
days of
about
community
we're
service.
talking about $150 worth of weed.
A mids, you can call it mids, man. It was
Mids, bro.
And I was 17, young kid, hoping to go to college at some point. But I made the mistakes, and I lived with it. So I ended up just doing community college, which is not a bad thing. But I definitely cut my options by a lot when I got those felonies. They were, at the worst of it, I could have gone to prison for 15 years.
Wow.
If they for each felony, the maximum sentence was 5 years.
Wow, dude.
And I was 17, just never done anything wrong besides that.
No.
Wow.
And then after 5 years of good behavior, they check being on probation, and then after like another year of community service, I was finally off that. And then they took my felony off my record because I, kept my nose clean, as they would call it.
So you had a deferred sentence or something.
Yeah. They call it deferred sentence.
I got you.
Yeah. I had to, play their game, jump their hoops for a good 6 years before when I considered it free.
And now let me ask you this, man, because now we're going to see the government start to make money off this. They're going to make money off these tax revenues and things like that. How do you feel about that after spending 5 years of your life as a felon?
Man, it's very hypocritical. As we know, a lot of it is like that, but there's a lot of they return. As long as they have programs, and like I hear some felons are getting their felonies erased from marijuana charges. Some of these prisoners are getting released, but until everybody's released, things like that. It's really still very hypocritical point of view.
So you think they should release everybody in jail for cannabis charges?
100%. There's no reason to be locked up for cannabis.
Like yesterday,
especially when like when
Think about that.
when the cotton industry lobbied it to be illegal, whenever that was, 70s, 60s.
Sam, did you want to chime in there? I thought you was.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about this is like Jamie's story, which is absolutely absurd, right? This idea that they would entrap a 17-year-old boy over and over and over again. Like, why did they just stop at 3? Why not do it 5 times? Hit you with 5 felonies? Like, what an arbitrary and sick approach.
Why not do it once and then tell them, hey, you're not supposed to do this? Why?
Yeah, like exactly. Like, hey, bud, like you're 17 years old, you realize what you're trying to do here, but like maybe take a step back. Like this, whatever. But like this idea that like that's Jamie's story. Then you've got other people with similar stories, but they're actually still doing hard time. Right. And like it's just like it's absurd, right? And
it's crazy.
And the federal government, like, make no mistake, right? Like, this is a pretty deep rabbit hole. But I mean, if we think about tax revenues from cannabis businesses, make no mistake, the federal government makes money off of cannabis businesses today.
Absolutely.
And like, you don't like, and in fact, what they've done, which is like neither here nor there, but like as you go into like the tax code of this stuff around cost of goods sold and the rest of it, it's actually more limiting to obviously to be a cannabis business than it is to be a regular business, because you don't even have the write-off capabilities that a quote unquote legal business has, right? So the federal
that
government
280E tax code is a bitch, man.
they're not even incentivized to legalize on the federal level because they're making more money out of us by keeping us in the shadows, right? So I think at one point for sure, I'm thinking in the next decade or less, we'll probably see it go federal. But for now, feds are making hay. So why even bother supporting that? So I don't know. It's just a nutty thing to think that, one, there are people still incarcerated from decades past for nonviolent cannabis offenses, and this idea that you could charge a 17-year-old child multiple times off the same crime over and over again. Basically, it's entrapment in the truest sense of the word. It's disgusting. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, to go back to that, the reason they did it so many times is, instead of just once, is because they really wanted me to become a confidential informant. Like they
were
sat me down.
They were trying to flip you.
Yeah, they sat me down in a room without a lawyer. I mean, they gave me the option to have a lawyer, but you know, a 17-year-old kid, who am I going to call? Parents didn't speak English, probably didn't have any money to hire anybody anyways.
Oh, damn.
So this sat me in a room, explained to me how fun it was to be a confidential informant, and like how some of these people, the other confidential informants, were some of them were getting paid, some of them were having, like, you know, getting their charges dropped, and how fun it was for some of them.
So they told
like,
you maybe there was some financial incentive to cooperate as well.
Not for me particularly, but they did mention it, that there was people that were getting financial incentives. But yeah, they said they wouldn't even charge me, you know, drop all the charges if I just wore a wire and bought some weed from other people, whatever it was they wanted me to buy.
And did they ever
And then when I
acknowledge
say
the fact that they're putting your life at risk, sort of, when they put you in that situation?
you know, right, at 17, I didn't really understand the significance of it, but you know, at 15 years later, reflecting back, that's definitely, you know, playing with my life. I mean,
get killed for that shit.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. And they just have no problem just throwing a 17-year-old kid into that situation.
Yeah. And you want to hear something funny? The person that was a confidential informant of me, who I eventually found out, life was ruined because he did what he did, and he had to move out of state, which is, you know, sounds about right if you're doing stuff like that. But they manipulated a young kid to doing their dirty work too, who ruined, I mean, end up leaving their home, having to leave their hometown.
You know, and all because of some sort of drug policy that was really just based on some racism, if you ask me.
Facts.
Yeah, okay, I'm not crazy, right?
Yeah. No.
Boy, we're still there. And do you guys still see this? I mean, Southern Vermont to me is a foreign country. But do you guys still see a lot of the pushback down there? A lot of the sort of reefer madness propaganda?
Not as bad anymore. There's, you know, when not as bad anymore. Like I've read recently, like a few months ago, you can find this on, you know, if you Google it, the town, and the newspaper here is called the Reformer. This man that lived in the town, right next to Brattleboro, was caught with like 60 pounds in a BHL manufacturing lab, and all they did was charge him with a fine that was $2,500, and he got back to his day.
That used to be like a felony for like manufacturing a controlled substance.
Yeah, that was like 10, 20 years worth of time. And this dude was already on probation. That's why, I mean, this was all on newspaper. So, you know, I'm not giving out too much details, but it's, that's not public information. Like this dude was caught with so much, and he was on probation. That's how they caught him, and was just, the state prosecutor wanted to give it to hand it over to the feds. Feds said they didn't care, and then prosecutor just gave him a fine, $2,500.
Okay, so we are making a little progress, maybe.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah.
It seems like we're going baby step by baby step. I wish maybe we would take larger steps, but it does seem like that's the way kind of politics advances, and it is in very small incremental changes.
Yeah, for sure. Whichever way the money's flowing seems to be the way it advances.
Exactly.
Well, it's definitely flowing into a lot of these weed businesses.
Fact.
And I hate to see the MSOs trying to stake their claim here by buying out all our medical licenses. That really bothered me.
That's so wild to me. That it's dirty pond water business, man. It's nutty. It's nutty.
And they don't even grow good weed. That's the thing. Like, if one of these companies could grow good weed, I would maybe let Curaleaf slide, but they don't grow good weed. And they were selling moldy garbage to cancer patients for $400 an ounce. And Jamie, as a caretaker, I'm sure that's something that might drive you a little nuts.
Oh man, I would boycott that shit so fast. Mold, you're already got enough going against you, and you're smoking mold now. That's
Yeah.
ass backwards.
Especially if you got any kind of respiratory problems or breathing
Yeah,
issues, and now you're gonna have to breathe
lot.
in moldy weed. Like,
Yeah, 100%. It's sometimes it might be life and death for somebody with severe asthma. I mean, I guess they shouldn't be smoking in the first place, but sometimes that clean stuff is not that bad.
and
But you have
sometimes you
something.
need, I don't know, just for me, like the mental clarity I get sometimes outweighs the physical. Like, I know it's bad to smoke, but like I need that mental health of being able to clear my brain. And
Yeah,
sometimes that's worth the damage that I might be doing to my lungs, in my personal opinion.
yeah. There is damage, but still not as bad as tobacco and stuff like that.
Right, cigarettes or nicotine vaping or
I know. I've been a smoker for a long time. I'm trying to kick it.
man,
I know it's killing me. Like,
Oh man, I used to smoke tobacco in the form of blunts, and then once I stopped, I could actually breathe a full breath without wheezing.
and if you're gonna be a caretaker, you got to take care of yourself. It seems like.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, gentlemen, I'm at the end of my list. Oh, here's a comment you made earlier, Jamie. You said everybody's getting their money. As soon as someone has a skill that can apply to cannabis, their eyes turn to dollar signs. I was hoping maybe you would expand on that thought before we get out of here.
Yeah, totally, man. Like Sam and I have talked about this a handful of times. It's all these regular businesses, as soon as they hear cannabis or cannabis markets, all of a sudden they become cannabis specialists, and then their prices go up 2, 3 times higher. There's a lot of this things that could be done just by like an example. And I haven't had this experience specifically, but an HVAC guy can do the work what we need him to do, but then you find someone who specializes in cannabis HVAC, and all of a sudden, it's 2 or 3 times more money, even though it's the exact same knowledge and experience as the previous guy.
And what
And
about
that's
what about like
just like what you guys were saying earlier with the banking. They hear cannabis, and all of a sudden,
that's the cleanest example of it, which we touched on.
it's crazy. A percentage
Right.
of your deposits. It's not our business. It's not your business. It's our business. It's what the bank is saying.
And I felt like
individual
really
vendors and shit. It's
the
nuts.
amount of work they have to do with the FinCEN guidance to fill out the reports. So it's basically anything over 10 grand a day. You have to fill out a suspicious activity report. It's one page front and back. They have all of that information publicly available. It's really not that hard. It seemed like from my reading of it, and it seemed like they were overblowing the amount of work that they would have to do to take care of their members. And I really thought they were fleecing you guys.
100%, man. And like, listen, I get it. Like, there are some considerations to your point. And potentially, yeah, it should be slightly more expensive because of the business that we're in and the regulations they're in. But this idea that you're going to take whole points off the top of someone's revenue stream, like you've lost your fucking mind. Like, not happening, pal. But yeah, no,
Jamie, I like your
I've
partner here.
That,
You got a good partner.
With
No, he
vendors,
knows what he's talking about.
like you hit up somebody to try to do a job at the facility, and then like, so our experience has been like just not telling them what it is. Like, you come down, like if you figure it out, if you ask us what we're doing in here, we're going to tell you, but we're not going to alert you to the fact that we'd like you to put a toilet into a cannabis facility, and just so that you can tell me that a toilet in a cannabis facility is harder for some reason for you to put in than it is in a school, right? Like, come on, dude.
And a lot of people have told me that, where they've had to basically set up their business under a construction company or something, so that the banks don't know what they're doing. And they want to be honest, which is fucked up, because you're creating a situation where people feel like they have to be dishonest because they're being discriminated against.
You just want to be treated like any other business,
That's it.
Especially now that this shit's legal. Like, we're over this, I thought.
Dude, that's the other thing. Like, it was crazy. So this is like just a little tangent that I think is important to share with people.
Take it, yeah.
It's really hard to find a place for you to set up your business. It just is, right? For a number of reasons. We know that real estate in Vermont is going at an all-time premium, right? Like we've seen a huge influx of out-of-staters that are coming to take advantage of all the fruits that Vermont has to offer. That has made a housing crisis that was already in flight way worse. We know that to be true. But then you talk about commercial real estate, and you add like a question that you had asked earlier, but I don't think we got to, which is like the difficulties of zoning, right? So there's only a few places and a few towns that we can really do this at. And that sort of shortens up the pool and supply of available real estate even tighter. And then like the suitability of that building, you know, is a crapshoot once you really get under the hood. Like, is there a mold infestation problem here? Like everything else. So like the pool just shrinks. And it's like, it's so important once you have found your space to then find, because Jamie's not a construction guy. I'm not a construction guy, dude. Like I can barely like drill a screw. Like a barely operated drill.
I'm with you.
Like you have to have people that you can trust doing this work for you. Like, you know what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed, you know, what you want to provide this facility, or what you want this facility to be capable of providing. But it's just so important to align yourself with people who aren't trying to fleece you at every turn. And it's like, there's just no room for that. So we've been blessed over time to tap into a network of contractors and you know, eventually find some people that are cool to work with. I think you're pulling Defiance on here to talk to. We've had some good luck with those guys.
Peter Dion. Yeah. I really like talking to Peter.
Like real people who love cannabis and understand like there is certainly some considerations that need to be made, but they also don't have to make their fortune
right.
in one, right? Like it's,
you can still make an honest living and not fleece people.
Exactly.
If you ask me.
Yeah.
I agree.
Anyway.
So gentlemen, I'm not a shit here, but I always leave the last word for my guests. So I'm gonna open it up. If there's anything we miss, Jamie, Sam, that you guys want to hit up here, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. This has been a pleasure. Your herb is looking phenomenal.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man.
Oh man, I'm gonna try to get up north and get you some samples to actually try it out. So you know,
you let me know if you come up here. I'll get you my address.
For sure, get you a clear sample, or you know, clear experience of it.
Well, if either of you guys got anything, this is all you right now. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you guys the best of luck out here in the market when you get your license.
For sure, man. Hey, listen, real quick, Caleb, thank you for doing this, not just with us, but with others. It's been fun to watch and listen to other people's stories as well. And I think that's the headline for us, man. Not to sound like a politician, but I think we've been really excited about the community and the people we mentioned. Nick, there's others though that we've had opportunity to interact with because we've seen them on your show or just like cross paths on, the Discords or whatever. And it's like, hopefully this sense of community remains, like even as the money starts to exchange hands and the rest of it. So we'll see what it looks like, but so far so good.
Great point, Sam.
For sure. You
got anything else, Jamie?
No, Sam pretty much got it covered. Just look out for our flower and about the spring of 2023. So
when you guys get that shit to the shelves, you let me know where it's at and I'll blast it up on the internet.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure, gentlemen. Good luck with everything, and thank you one more time for taking some time out of your schedules here.
Likewise, man.
Peace.
Likewise.
Peace.
All right.